All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted One-on-One and special guest today. And I think I say that every time, but I mean it every time. So, good friend, and we'll probably talk about how far we go back. But let me introduce you to Mark Callahan, and I'll actually kick it over to him and let him introduce himself, and we'll get going.
Yeah. Hey, Aaron. So first, thanks for having me on Unscripted. I know this has been a passion of your life for as long as I probably have known you, that you've always wanted to do things like this. So, congratulations on that. I've watched the series so far. I think it's been informative and fun, and it's good to see you doing what you want to do. It's always great when somebody follows a passion and, has fun doing it. That's what makes life exciting and fun. So, yeah, Mark Callahan, as you said, known you for many years. God keeps intertwining our lives with work and outside of work and all those great things. Yeah, father of four, so we're in this together as well. We have teenagers. I got 16, 14, 12, and 7. So boy, girl, boy, girl. So father of four, always interested. I managed to shoo them out of the house for a little while. Otherwise, this would be really unscripted.
Yeah.
So they just had one request, is for me to wear this shirt that they bought me many years ago. So I don't know if you can see it well, but
Yeah, great shirt.
yeah. So obviously, CEO, CFO, main instructor, and all those things of J5 that we have there at the Bo Jackson Center there, where we run a self-defense and fitness program. The program is based on martial arts and mixed martial arts for fitness and for self-defense. So there's a couple of different programs that we have going on there that allow people to jump in as deep as they want to or as shallow as they want to and find a new way to work out. So, yep.
Very cool. And so just to go back on one of the things that you said, we used to, I think is there three places that we've worked in the same place at some point? I can't remember. It's 2 or 3, but I haven't worked that many places, but I think it's 3. I know for sure it's 3. It might be 4. We've known each other. I was trying to think about it before this started. We have known each other probably close to 20 years, which is amazing. Mark's been a friend to our family. His family's a friend of our family's, and he actually babysat one night when we had our second child while we ran off to the hospital to my wife actually to give birth. I just got to be there to support. But Mark stayed with our oldest at this point to babysit for us. So we go way back, and it's been exciting to see his growth as well. And especially, I'll echo what you just said, that passion that you're following for this, that you've created. So what is, you mentioned J5. So let's start with the name. What is J5 Fitness? Why did you call it that?
Sure. First, I'm going to jump back one thing though. So how tall is Austin now?
He's probably 6'4".
I think that night, he was probably about that high on. He was just a little fella. So I remember that night. So it's really, they say that days drag by and the years fly by. And I think that's very true. When you step back and see, like Austin, and you just go, wow, you just remember this little kid, and now he's a big grown guy heading out, on his own path and his own venture. So that's awesome. So J5, it really kind of came to me in many different ways, but J5 just stands for just 5, or just 5 minutes. At the time when I was kind of putting together what I wanted to do, kind of taking my passion of martial arts and traditional martial arts, putting it for self-defense and then a fitness program, I was just thinking about names and things like that. It just came that, I was watching the news one night, and 5 minutes is about how long the national average was. I say was because today that national average is, I probably have to call it J35 now. But that would be about how long it would take for help to come to you in a situation that you would find yourself on your own and needing help and assistance. You're probably going to have to survive for about 5 minutes. That was the national average then for police to respond or for some outside help to help you. So that's where J5 came from.
Yeah. And so let's just keep rolling with that. started in karate and then moved into, as you said, it's a passion. Your whole family is involved, but just keep going with J5. And so you have that vision of what that is. Can you just explain what it is that you do?
Sure, absolutely. So, going back as a kid, my dad was in the Air Force for over 25 years. So we traveled many, many countries. And every country that I found myself in, it seemed like my dad, my brother and I had an older brother who he would put us in whatever program was going on in that country. And sometimes we'd end up being, the American kid in the class of, in Okinawa, for example, island off of Japan, we were probably the only American kids in there. So we received a lot of special attention. And so we would, whatever program we were in. So I probably have over 35 years now worth of experience in everything from boxing. We did, traditional boxing, karate to what they call Muay Thai, which, for a lay person, that would be like a kickboxing type thing, to most recently Taekwondo, to which all my family are in, multiple black belts in those sports. So, I remember one day I was just standing there and, not everybody's going to want to walk into a traditional martial arts center and put on a white gi and, put on the white belt and go out there and do that thing. There's many different sides to martial arts. So there is, what they would call in traditional martial arts like forms or katas, where you're using certain patterns of moves. The further I got along in that, the more I realized there's so many folks that don't have the advantage of martial arts, such as being able to stretch, the flexibility, just the overall body workout, the different type of conditioning. I just found that there was a large group of people that were just, that's not for me. I'd love to do that part, but I really don't want to do the white uniform and the testing and the belt ranking and all that kind of stuff. So I would hear that quite a lot. And I remember I was waiting to actually go into a sparring ring with one of my fellow guys, and he said, "Hey man, wouldn't it be great, if we could just do like UFC type training, just the training, just like a boot camp where we could go and, work on ropes and medicine balls and heavy bags and all that kind of stuff, but not the fighting part, just the exercise part." And that just got me worrying, man. I was thinking to myself, there are so many people that don't necessarily like the traditional sports, like my kids. They're not football orientated, they're not baseball orientated, basketball orientated, but they enjoyed martial arts. They enjoyed the challenge of working their own bodies, and then when they got into competitions and things like that. So I kind of wanted to put together a program where people could take the benefits of long-term martial arts, but not have to do the part that a lot of people didn't want to do at the time, which, I felt was like, the testing and the belt ranking and even the sparring. Not everybody's comfortable going into sparring. So, there's a lot of benefits on the exercise portion of it. So that was one side of the program I wanted to do. And then I wanted to do another side, which was self-defense, which is different from traditional martial arts. So, and then we did a bully program where we had a lot of children come through, and we still do, prior to COVID-19, where, there were just kids hurting in school from being picked on, and their self-confidence was really low, right? Their self-esteem was really low. They felt like they couldn't do anything. So, I would run them through the program, and from week 1 to week 4 or 5, I would just watch these kids. I would see their self-esteem rise up, just from getting in there and gaining the confidence. Not that they're going to get into a fight. It's not about that. It's about gaining confidence that they can actually do something that they didn't think they could do, and it'd be beneficial for their body as well. So, J5 kind of, we went from that, and we had a women's self-defense program and a men's self-defense program, and then the kids self-defense program prior to COVID. So, it was really gaining a lot of steam. Obviously, COVID hampered a lot of people, and we've had to adjust, and we've had to adapt, and that's what we're doing. We couldn't get hands-on as much as we did before in self-defense. So we're kind of working through that as the nation moves through that. We're moving with it. We're still working on these programs to keep things rolling. So, it's going well. I enjoy it. I love it. I just love watching people, that confidence they gain from being able to think that, if there's a situation, they might be able to help themselves rather than having to wait on help. So, it's something that I love about the program.
And I'm going to be a little bit repetitive, and it's just for our audience because your audio it sounds at times it's kind of going in and out a little bit.
Sure.
So just to be a little bit repetitive, but the refresh kind of what you said. There's a lot of different elements to what you're doing, and that's what's been really neat to watch. And why I love the concept up front was I may not want a black belt. I don't want to do the white uniform. I don't want to go to a karate studio and do all that. But I sure love that workout. I could use that workout, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people that would love the fitness aspect of it. So that's kind of one column of several columns that you have. There's an anti-bullying that you do. There's self-awareness that you do. There's teaching for self-defense that you do. And then all of it kind of incorporates in together to create what you've created with J5. Within our facility, Mark had approached us 2 years ago now?
Yes, it's 2 years.
2 years. So we have a 45-foot steel tower that has no walls on it. It's just a climbing tower, so it's got climbing elements on it. And the first floor was empty, and Mark had approached us about wanting some space, and we're a very turf-based facility, so there really wasn't anywhere to go. And then we all kind of looked up at this space on that climbing tower, which created a whole nother element of fear for some people getting even 25 feet off the ground. Steel structure, it feels like it's moving, but it's not going anywhere. But so we created a studio with Mark's help for J5, and it's been amazing to watch the evolution. And so one of the things that you had touched on as well was from your perch, I guess we would call it, on that tower, you have visual to the sports performance area that we have, as well as the batting cages and where they do private instruction. And I know one of the things you said right up front was you were watching hitting instruction and noticed that the pivot at the waist and that core movement is the same. Yep. And then you looked over in the sports performance area and they were teaching core movement, strengthening your core. The very things so that was just three elements that all of a sudden it was like, we can really have some synergy here. And can you talk about that, what you've realized just being there and how that fits the whole athlete, not just people that want to come in and punch the bobs and the bags. What other elements have you noticed from your vantage point where you were?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I'm scared of heights. So, when everybody walked in, that was like the last place I thought I'd end up. But that's great. It does add a little element of fear. We do have some folks that are nervous of heights that have overcome that. It's repetitive coming up the stairs, right? Working out to get over that. But yeah, back going to watching all the athletes and what they do, the softball and the baseball guys, there's a lot of pivoting and there's rotation. There's moving the shoulders forward to gain that power hit. And it's not a lot different than, some of the things that I'm teaching when it comes to, doing basic striking for defense, So I've had softball players, soccer players, I still have softball players that have come up and they've said, wow, these workouts really have benefited me in a different way. It's not to replace anything, it's just in a different way. One of the things I like to focus on, is cardio endurance, not just endurance and not just cardio, but cardio endurance, taking that cardio heart rate up to a high level and keeping it there for a period of time, because, that benefits us obviously overall in cardio health, but it really benefits you in a self-defense aspect. Something happens to you, the first thing that happens is your heart rate just shoots up. That's just natural fear. It helps with that. And so I've had, you remember, we had professional ex-NFL players come up there, and, they've come to work out, and just a few minutes into it, they're like, wow, this is more cardio than I ever thought it would be. And that's great. Just adds a different element and helps them to get better at their sports, because it's still pivoting, it's still talking about rotation of the hips and gaining power. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover I noticed, which I didn't think about, until I stood up there and looked out on the field and watched, the baseball players and softball players, how the coaches are talking about moving those hips, then they'll come up here and do the same thing with me at J5. So, I think it's just a supplement, right? One thing that I had where it was parents were saying, man, my kid's kind of getting a little burned out on baseball or a little
Right.
burned out on basketball. And so we take them up there and we run through that program and we'll work on these things, and they're not losing the things that they've already gained in baseball, but maybe they're just taking a short break from it and doing something different. I have one late girl that in particular, I mean, she's a very quick learner, and she was a really good softball player and will be. And you can just tell in her movements from the softball how natural that is to move into the program like J5. So there's definitely benefits there, and that's definitely worth it.
And I was on with Dave Richardson earlier this week, and he was talking about being a strength coach of multiple different sports. And he said, that, and I'm going to ruin the quote, but I'm pretty sure it was, strength is good for any sport. It doesn't matter because they're all different in terms of what they need to strengthen, but that core strength is great for every sport. And I would say that we have noticed too that you connected really well with, I know we used to run some of our teams through with you, especially the softball teams that we have, the younger softball teams, and they would come through and just spend some time with you. And you didn't just talk about punching a bob or, self-defense. You talked about online awareness. There was a lot of things that you covered that a lot of those girls ended up signing up and coming back on their own individually with you, because as you said, that's not an element that they get too often coming to practice every day. And it really, the coach isn't going to be somebody that's going to sit. Now, some of them do. I in fairness, maybe there's time for coaches to pour into them that way, but you gave an element of needed message to a lot of those young ladies, and they enjoyed coming so much that a lot of them signed up, on their own. Isn't that true?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the programs when we ran, particularly the softball girls through. There were some who were, getting ready to head off to college in the next year or two, and just some of the things. So they're going to be off, and they're going to gain this freedom, and they're going to, kind of have to look at the world completely different, right? So I know self-defense. A good self-defense program is not all about just striking and hitting, right? That's the very small part. If I'm in a self-defense situation where I'm striking and hitting and having a fight, there's probably a whole lot of elements that I didn't learn or I wasn't aware of prior to keeping me out of it. I always say good self-defense is you never know. You never knew you had to use it. You walked away. You avoided that situation. Self-defense is kind of being a self-defense coach is a little different, right? So a baseball coach teaches their player to get better, and they can see that in the game, right? I teach people and hope they never use what I ever have to teach.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
So we do a large portion of our talks, even in the adult. There's consequences for self-defense, both legally and morally, right? We all have different, thought patterns of what we would do and what we wouldn't do. And so we talk through those things because that's a huge portion of it. It's not something that you just go learn to hit a few bags and say, okay, I'm good, I can defend myself. Especially in today's world, violence is definitely on the rise, to avoid those situations. And then how do you handle those situations? How do you de-escalate them? How do you get yourself out of them? And how do we put our pride aside and our ego aside to walk away, and to avoid those situations? I mean, using self-defense in a physical aspect is always the last resort, and it's not the end resort because there's always consequences afterwards that you're dealing with. But with the girls in particular who are heading off to college, one of the things that we did, which I thought was really unique and fun, I had what they call drunk goggles, right? So they're the goggles, you've seen them, probably police departments have them, and they'll usually put them when they're doing like a day show, and you put them on and the vision's blurred, right? So we talked about, drinking and how that's going to affect your ability to see the world around you. And one of the things we did was we had two lines of girls, and we put the drunk goggles on, we spun them to disorientate them, and then we asked them to do some of the simple things they would have to do to defend themselves. And then we had them take the black goggles off and do it again. And just that the difference between the two, how vast that was. There's several of the girls I heard talking, about, man, that's really opening our eyes to what's coming, because, a couple of drinks down the line and, before you know it, you're in a bad situation. So we do a lot of things like that. With the kids and with the softball girls in particular, that was just a really neat, fun time to have those guys go through that, because we just talked a lot more about, just hitting and punching. It was a lot more about avoiding situations and what to look out for, and signs and precursors of trouble and things like that. So, and that's something that we carried on into the adult program and also into the junior, like the anti-bully programs, So, yeah, it was great. Good, a lot of fun.
And you have had, just to recap too, you've had success with a lot of different groups. So church groups, ladies groups from church, real estate agents. There's certain jobs that put themselves in harm's way, not that we would think of, not like a policeman, fireman, ambulance, but a real estate agent can be in a bad place pretty quickly. And so I know you've worked with some groups like that. So those are all places that you've had that success and found that they want to prepare themselves, as you said. Hopefully, it's almost like insurance. You don't hope you ever use it, but you certainly need it. And in today's world, that's real important, as you said, and becoming more important by the day and minute almost. But so the other thing before because I know we had a hard stop at the end. Where can people find you? Where can they just contact you if they've heard something here that says, let me just ask them some questions and, pricing and all those other kind of things. Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you and me, I'm not a huge IT guy. So Facebook, I know that's for old people now, apparently is what I'm told, but, J5 Self-Defense Facebook page, obviously Bo Jackson's web page and or Facebook page is probably the best ways to reach me. And then, you can post my phone number afterwards if people are interested. I'm kind of old school and love talking to people rather than, doing it over the internet. But Facebook, J5 Self-Defense and Fitness is probably the most social way to do it.
And I love that, we always talk about, I think you and I've talked about before, there's the ocean liner and there's the jet ski. The ocean liner is the one that has to, for it to turn around, it takes quite a while. The jet ski can be very nimble, and your business is very nimble because, as you said, you're the CEO, CFO, the instructor, the trainer, the cleaner, you literally are one-man band running this business. And so you have the opportunity, if somebody were to call you and maybe they have an office, they wanted to get people in the office or a church group or a staff or whatever it might be. I know you would work with them and talk through, first of all, what are your concerns and what are the various, like we've said, you have a lot of pillars. Which one of those or all of them could we use? It's a very holistic approach to what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the programs that we can run is, I have everything. I have portable mats. I have everything I can take with me except for those heavy bags, right? I can take things with me if people want to do something for their office, but would rather do it on site. We can do that. That's not a problem at all. And you talked about the differences too. Not everybody that comes in says to me, "Hey, I want to learn self-defense," right? Because you're teaching people, unfortunately, to be, and this is what I tell people in the classes, you're teaching people when violence faces you, you're teaching people to be violent back. And that's just not, natural nor normal for many, many, many people, okay? So the program is geared, I ask people, what are your goals? What is it you want to do? Well, some people say, I just want to lose weight. Hey, I just want a different type of workout. I'm not really interested in self-defense, but I'd like to try hitting the bags. And they are learning. If I teach them how to do certain things, they've already learned physical aspects to self-defense when they said they weren't, really interested in doing that. They've already learned that. And I've had people that start out telling me that, and then as they learn, they're like, "Hey, I want to learn more. Hey, I like doing that. I want to gain more knowledge in that." So, I'm able to say, "What are your goals? What is it you want to do?" and work with those people from there. So we have some, I've had some people, unfortunately, that have found themselves in bad circumstances and want to be able to avoid that in the future. I have some people that just say, "Hey man, I got to get off the couch. And I don't want to go to a gym and pump weights. I don't want to go, have a cardio trainer." One of the things that there's a lot of good self-defense programs out there, and it's certainly not to knock any, but I don't put on red gear and come out and start spitting in people's faces in person. You know, that's just not what I do. You know, I've had people that unknowingly were victims of domestic violence. She already knows what it's like to be cursed at. I don't need to do that to her, you know, but we do role play, we do some scenarios, we do things like that, and I'll take them what they're comfortable to, because you have to continuously move the bar for people. You can't just take a, you know, a person that has no aspect of self-defense and say, okay, I want you to start, you know, thumbing people in the eye. That's just not practical nor realistic, you know. So we take them to where they're comfortable, you know, and we can do it on site, like we were talking about earlier. We can do it at the Bowdoin. We've had a lot of success with different groups. Yeah, you know, home realtors. I think if my wife ever asked me and said, hey, I think I'm going to do that job, you know, I'd be like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're walking into a house with strange people that you don't know, you know, and it's just in today's world. So we talked about that, you know, distancing, being aware, not being in the phone, you know, with your head down. And unfortunately, actually, during one of those classes, there was I think it was in California, where it you know, all the mainstream media, where a realtor, he asked her a question, she put her face down, and he pushed her to the ground and then proceeded to assault her. You know, it was caught on a home camera. And it's just, you know, taking that step back, standing in a certain way to make sure you're not off balance should somebody try to shove you or put your hands in you. We walked through all of that. And, you know, a couple of them have gotten back and said, hey, that really gives me more confidence walking into these situations. Not that you're Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
When I say that to the younger kids, I say, you're not going to become Bruce Lee. They have no idea who Bruce Lee is.
No idea. Yeah.
So I say, you're not going to become Chuck Norris. They have no idea who Chuck Norris is.
Right.
By the time I get to Jackie Chan, they're kind of figuring out.
Maybe.
They're not going to become like these martial artists, right? So you're just going to be more aware. And that's part of the program. Again, there is, you know, there's some great traditional martial arts and self-defense programs that work on the ground to strike in. You know, I take the most basic of the things I've done and teach people that. Basic kicks, basic strikes, things like that, because in a high stress situation, you're not going to remember, you know, these really complicated moves. You're going to barely remember to cover your face up, you know. So we'll do that, and in hopes that becomes muscle memory. I remember, so one of the things I always say is, you remember the first day you drove a car, Aaron? You came in, you put your buckle on, you made sure it's clipped, you looked in all the mirrors, you checked everything, you were nervous, you went down the street, everything scared you. Now today you get in your car, you just go. You know, you do those things, but you don't even think about it, right? It's the same thing with muscle memory for self-defense. If you just come one or two times, 20 years from now, you're going to take that belt and you know, it's going to be that process. But if you make it consistent, that's why I like making it part of a overall fitness program more than just a self-defense thing, is that you're getting fit, you're staying fit, but you're also learning these skills and retaining these skills as you go along. And so you'll just do those things, you know, hopefully in a situation. But again, I'm a coach that teaches people stuff that I hope they never use. So, yeah. And one thing I just wanted to quickly mention, when you talked about looking out over the fields, I remember looking out over the fields and they were packed, man. They were packed. You know, we had, I think, football going on in the cages. And I just read a statistic that 1 in every 10 kids that goes to college will receive some sort of assault, whether it be sexual or physical, 1 in 10. And I looked at all these kids that were, you know, doing the sports and in these great programs. And I thought, man, you and you and you. And it just broke my heart, you know. And so for me, if I can give anybody awareness or help to keep them out of those situations in the first place, so we make those not 1 in 10, but 1 in 20, you know, 1 in 30, that'd be great. And then, you know, kicking back to bullies, you can work with victims of bullies in your one-on-one, right? But if you can stop somebody from becoming a bully in the first place, you've affected 20 or 30 kids probably in that lifetime. So I kind of looked for that. And I remember specifically, we did have somebody that was identified to me as a potential bully. And the first week, you know, this girl came in, hoodie up, didn't talk to anybody, kind of, you know, very unsocial. And I'm telling you, by the time we were done, that program. Her hood was down. She was doing stuff, high-fiving everybody, walking out of there. You know, I've never heard from her since, but I hope that changed her in a way, because one thing I found in martial arts self-defense, you get humbled really quickly if you think you're really tough, right? So, you know, we did some things initially with her, but she realized, hey, you know, it's not nice to be like that. And that changed her whole demeanor within that program. And I think that was kind of one of my success stories that I think about quite often, that if we can just hit the bully rather than the victim, we're going to cover a lot of people.
Yeah. And you do a great job as far as just being aware of your why. You know your why. And if anybody's listening to this or watching it, then they'll hear that passion from you. I had somebody tell me yesterday, or I think the day before, that they've been watching these, and I'm, honored that just one person would watch. But they said the thing that I'm seeing is so many people have a passion. They found something they're passionate about. And this is your passion. This is your why. The two things I want to make sure we get in there too beforehand is you typically work with families. You have a whole family groups that come in, was one thing I wanted to make sure that we stress. I know you work with a couple of, the entire family comes in at one time. And along those lines, one of the post-COVID or midst COVID or wherever we're at now on the curve, one of the actions that you've taken is you have space, even though it's not a massive studio, you still have space and you've got marks on the floor. What are some of the, just for anybody that listens and is like, I don't know about people touching stuff and,
Sure.
sweating, and what are some of the actions you've taken in terms of COVID?
Yeah, so absolutely, that's a great question, because you have to adapt, right? You have to, as the Marines would say, adapt and overcome. We have to adapt and overcome COVID. It's, originally it was flatten the curve for a couple of weeks, and we're a few months into this. Who knows when this is going to end? So you can't, you have to adapt. You have to change. So one of the things that we did was divide up the area we had, so somebody could come in if they're really conscious and don't want to do that. I'll wear a mask if they want me to wear a mask. They can continue to wear their mask. They can take their mask off. I'll wear gloves if they want me to wear gloves. It's totally fine. We'll keep the distance in if that's a concern for them. And they'll have their own space. They'll have their own bag. They'll have their own area, and we can work in that program. Obviously, we disinfect in between every single class, anything that's been used or touched, and then at the end of the night, I disinfect the entire upstairs, whether it's equipment been used or not used. We'll go ahead and disinfect and clean all that. So those are some of the things we're doing. Then obviously, again, what you were alluding to was, I have families that, they're kind of out now, going to the grocery store, getting out and about, but maybe not to the point where they're willing to join a large organization. And they've said, hey, can we come in as a family? And I'll do family groups, I have a family that was attending a traditional martial arts studio that's not reopened, and they don't think it's going to reopen. So I'm working with them on some of the more traditional martial arts so they can keep the skills that they've learned. And they do that as a family. And then the women now come to the women's self-defense as well. So one-on-one, somebody comes in and says, hey, I don't want to work out with all the people. We've had allotted and slotted times where people can come in and work out by themselves with me. And currently right now, we're probably doing more personal training than group training, because I'm not ready to open it up to, a maximum of 4 right now. After that, after COVID, we'll probably go back into big groups again. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And I hate to cut our time short. I know we had some technical difficulties to start it off, but I'm glad we got the information out. And again, J5 Fitness, and I'll echo what you said in case anybody didn't hear it. The Facebook page is probably the best place. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know if that's for me, but maybe there's some interest peak, I would recommend going to the Facebook page, because you post a lot of the video, a lot of the photos of the groups that you have in, some of the activities that you've done. You really, put that out there for people really on that Facebook page primarily. And that's a great place to at least get started. And then they can reach out to you and find out, a best way to move forward. But I love that you found your passion and your lane, and I know it's going to continue to be blessed. So the last thing I want you to tell everybody is, what's the verse that's on your banner?
Right. Romans 18:12 is, whenever possible, live peaceably amongst all men. So to the best of our ability. So again, it comes from a mindset of when you can avoid the trouble, avoid it. Let's be polite with people. Let's put our pride aside. Let's get through the day, go home to our families at the end of the day. So yeah, definitely J5 Facebook page is the best way to reach me. And first lesson is always free. You know, we can have people come in and just say, you know, this is what I want to do. Can you make this happen? And, you know, if I can, we'll do that. So, yep, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on, brother. I love you. Thanks for always taking care of my family. And one of these days I'm going to get up there. I know I am. I need to get up there and get my workout on too. But we love having you at the facility, and more so, I love having you as a brother and a friend. So thanks for being on, man.
I appreciate it, man. And yeah, when one of those days you're all stressed out, just put the gloves on. We'll go on up there.
It'll be a very short round. Thanks again, Mark.
All right, man. Thanks. Bye-bye.